yeah, great. Can I get a show of hands? How many of you have used React Native? Put your left foot up if you've also used RevenueCat. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But for those people who mostly are, I guess, web developers here in the audience, I'm guessing at least, be not afraid. This talk will start mobile first, but then it will take a sudden twist to also be about web. But yeah, let's get into it. Why React Native apps make all the money? So before we get into all of that, I'm Perttu. I'm a developer advocate at RevenueCat, where I help people, developers mostly, make money with their apps. You can find me on X with that handle, and you can also find all that and the materials actually for the slides from my website, which is just my first name, .dev. So React Native apps make all the money. And what that means, earlier this year, RevenueCat, we analyzed all the apps that we have on our platform, so we do app monetization. And that ended up being like 75,000 apps making over $10 billion in revenue. And we compared the different, because you can use RevenueCat on different technologies, so native apps, Swift and Android, React Native, Flutter, and then all the other, for example, Cordova and whatnot. And we compared those apps, which one of those apps make a lot of money, which make less money, which monetize better, which monetize the best. And it turns out that React Native actually wins in almost all of these categories, which is might be surprising, and certainly something that gets all the native developers very angry. So first, if we take the download to paid, so how many apps, when they're downloaded from the app, actually end up being paid for by the customers, React Native wins in that clearly, as you can see. It not only wins over Flutter and other, but also the native apps. Same goes when you're comparing how much money per install of the app makes. React Native still wins. Then also if we look at the lifetime value per customer of using the app, that too, React Native wins. So it wins in all of these three categories. And the only time it loses is when you start to look at the year one retention. Now you could speculate a lot of reasons why this happens. Mostly it could be, for example, that after users, when they download the app, they pay for it, they get all the value they needed inside of a year, and that's why they don't see value in using it after a year. But if there's something to improve, this could be the category that make React Native apps monetize also a year after being downloaded and purchased. But then the real question is, of course, why does this happen? Why does React Native perform so much better? And there's an interesting article in the Pragmatic Engineer newsletter about multi-platform development or cross-platform development, which basically says that companies are choosing technologies for which it is easy to hire really good developers. And turns out that in most cases, that's actually React Native. It is way harder to hire good developers in same amount of quality, for example, to Flutter and Swift. So there must be also a reason why is React Native then the technology chosen for this? Well, it's all about it being basically a tool set for speed. So great apps are about delivering value fast to the market, because the time on market beats timing the market. And in order to also deliver value fast, you need to learn fast. With React Native, that means you have, for example, cross-platform reach. So you get iOS, Android, web, whatever you're building for. Basically, supporting everything that you need to have apps in. And also the native feel. So apps built in React Native for iOS actually feel like iOS apps. Same goes for Android. They feel like Android apps. And if you're building for web with React Native, that feels like an actual web app and not just some bundled together hack of a mess, for example, Flutter for web tends to be. And then this then leads to faster development and time to market. And of course, there's then the last point, the single code base, which allows you to get feature parity. You don't end up spending a lot of time developing individual features for different platforms in separate teams, but you can actually have one single team building multiple different platforms, which then brings monetization parity. So when you have all the features being same on all the platforms, you can way easier monetize that app, put subscriptions on it, put ads on it, whatever is your monetization strategy. So it unlocks a whole new level that would have not been previously possible if you had been building apps with different technologies for different platforms. But how do you then make it so that your apps makes money? Simple as that is like use RevenueCat. So we provide everything when it comes to subscriptions and in-app purchases as a service, so back in a box. We started out with in-app purchases for iOS and Android, but you can now use us in web as well. So that means that under the hood, we use either Stripe or Battle to handle the payments, and then you just get the subscription management. We have SDK for all the major platforms. We handle the store quirks and validation of receipts. And then on top of that, we provide stuff like paywalls to monetize better. We have analytics. We allow you to target different customer groups and experiment. And we bring all that together, allow you to automate, build things that, well, developers might not appreciate as much, but definitely the people in business appreciate being able to do all kinds of experimentation with the pricing. And it's all displayed in a very nice looking UI, where you can see how your revenue goes to the moon. With Expo, if we want to look at like what this means in practice, with Expo, the value promise could be said that you can build 3 platforms with a single code base. Well, with RevenueCat, you can monetize 3 platforms in a single code base. And it's pretty simple. So you take, for example, an existing Expo app, Expo React Native app, and you just do npx expo install React Native purchases, which is our React Native Purchases SDK. In code, the setup is, I would call, annoyingly simple, because there's not actually much to show. You initialize the SDK, you connect the platforms you're going to use, so iOS or App Store Connect and Google Play Console and Stripe, for example, and we give you a specific platform API key for those, which you then initialize in the client SDK. Then you purchase a subscription, either using our paywall or with this purchase package method that we provide. And then you check that the user entitlement. So after users have purchased something, we keep track what they're entitled to based on that purchase. And we call those in RevenueCat as entitlements, which basically just tells us that, okay, the user is eligible, for example, pro access. In code is pretty simple. So you call useEffect, for example, at the root of your application with the specific platform keys for different platforms. You can use, for example, the platform OS to check that which platform you're using the key for. And that's all that's required. At that point, we will start running the native code required for iOS and Android, and also the web code required, for example, Stripe billing. And then when you make a purchase, you can either call the purchase package and show those packages or products that you have in your app by yourself, check that user successfully purchased that and show the UI based on it. Or you can call the RevenueCat UI library with the %paywall, which will show this nice looking paywall that you can actually customize in our dashboard. It has like over 30 example paywalls, and you can also build a custom paywall completely in the web UI, and it's rendered natively. And once you've purchased or the customer has purchased something, you can just call purchases, get customer info to get what this specific customer purchased. And we keep track of all the customers, so we have the data for that to tell that, okay, this user on this device is actually the same user that is also using the web application. So then if you have a user using your app, your product on web, iOS, and Android, just giving us the customer, the user ID that you use, for example, that user will allow RevenueCat to tell you that what the user has purchased. And in simplicity, that's it. You can find an example project and a tutorial on how to do that at RevenueCat.com, and all the other information also from that QR code. Thank you.